Welcome to the Beau Show. I recently attended Turning Point USA's Student Action Summit in Tampa, Florida. This conference turned out about 5,000 students across the country who are getting engaged in politics. Perhaps now more than ever, students are feeling emboldened to take a more proactive role in their education. We've long known that academia is where leftism has taken root, and that of course gets transferred to impressionable students who are encouraged to become activists for leftist causes. Students are also more prone to be activists for the sake of activism itself, as if it is a moral high ground. Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA is the antidote to leftist activism on college and even high school campuses. He equips them with ways to engage that counter the peer pressure they often receive. We know that colleges have canceled comedians and various conservative speakers, but yet welcome figures as crazy as Mahmoud Ahmadinejad of Iran, who doesn't believe gay people even live in his country. College is supposed to be where students can challenge ideas. But as we saw recently, in an exchange with Senator Josh Hawley and a UC Berkeley professor, even raising a question is perceived as creating violence. It was the Canadian provincial government that mandated Dr. Jordan Peterson use pronouns in his classroom, which prompted Peterson's refusal, defiance, and eventual rise to prominence regarding free speech. Speaking of defiance, there was a group of about 50 protesters that gathered outside Tampa Convention Center, and I happened to be there when the fracas ensued. Take a look at the scene. So you see lots of megaphones and screaming and some rather colorful signs. Speaking of the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who spoke at this conference, I caught one protester who was walking around screaming the following.
Racist, sexist, anti-gay! Ron DeSantis, go away! We are not having your babies! Zombies are not welcome in our town!
Racist, sexist, anti-gay, Ron DeSantis, go away. We are not having your babies. Okay, I don't know if Ron DeSantis ever requested or commissioned any babies from them, but I highly doubt he'd make such a request from this group. Turning Point's Student Action Summit brings a lot of very interesting and prominent speakers, from pastors to sports figures to Donald Trump himself, who spoke for an hour and 45 minutes. Also speaking were two very vocal congressmen, Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia and Byron Donalds of Florida, two proactive states in election integrity. I was able to dive deep into why they do what they do, what makes them tick, and what they see from the inside with respect to the Biden presidency and the policy decisions that are being made right now. So I hope you listen carefully to two big playmakers in D.C., Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Byron Donalds.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining me today. We are here in Tampa at Turning Point USA's Student Action Summit. Take me back to when you were a student. Were you politically aware or active at that time?
Not really. I mean, I knew that I was interested in getting my business degree at the University of Georgia. I was a voter. I voted Republican, but the country was a lot different. And I'm so excited to be here because there's so many amazing students, and they are getting engaged because they see the real threat ahead for every single American, especially their generation, and that is that we're losing our freedoms.
Well, at what point do you think you noticed a shift in our education system in terms of a more Marxist style of indoctrination? When did you notice that?
Actually, I think that really started a couple of decades ago, and it slowly crept in, right? I mean, I'm a mom, so I have 3 kids. My kids are grown now, but just watching their education, helping them with homework, we saw things like Common Core math and different teaching and history, where it wasn't teaching exact history, it was more molding opinions. But I think now our education system is a real threat, and the Board of Education is something that Republicans should deal with when we get power.
Can you explain why Biden and the Democrats keep wanting to give billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine for a war that we seem to get no return on investment upon, and especially when we're facing high gas prices and inflation? Can you explain why they do that?
I am very happy you brought that up. I have voted no to all of that spending. I haven't voted for any of it, and the reason why is, of course, we feel sorry for the people in Ukraine. Of course, we're against what's happening to them. But we have so many problems here, right here in America. Our border's wide open. Deadly fentanyl's coming across. Crime is out of control. Inflation. People can't afford groceries. People can't afford gas. Mothers can't find baby formula. And with all of that going on, I find it appalling that Congress is so focused on another country that most people can't even find on a map. And that needs to change, but they're not going to change it. They are barreling ahead. The Democrats are going straight on in, the Biden administration and our State Department, because they want to fight a proxy war with Russia, and it's a war that we should not be fighting. We should be fighting the war right here in America to stop the Communist Democrat Party from destroying our country.
Well, I know that you and about 18 of your Republican colleagues voted against the U.S. approving Finland and Sweden to NATO, and I want to know if you could talk about that and why you voted no.
Well, I voted no on that because I don't think NATO is fair. The United States funds most of NATO. The United States is also controlling most of NATO. And now we're seeing this decision made by NATO to put the United States permanently along the flank of Russia to make a station right there and stay there. And that's going to cost us money. So I don't see any need for the United States to get more involved in NATO and be bringing more countries in that won't pay their fair share. This is completely wrong. I believe we need to put America first, our American tax dollars first, and put it towards the things that really matter. We have so many homeless people in our country, veterans that aren't being taken care of, and our border is being invaded every single day. And all these kids here, they need a future. They need an economy that is strong, and they need a job market when they come out of college or out of trade school where they can start their careers and live the American dream themselves.
Let's go to the issue of the Second Amendment. We saw a responsibly armed man in Indiana be able to stop a mass shooter. And when we see the failure of police in Uvalde, does this lend more credibility to a pro-Second Amendment argument to you?
Listen, I think there is always a pro-Second Amendment argument. As a matter of fact, I have never seen an argument to take away the Second Amendment or to pass more gun control. The reality is murder is legal, and there is already plenty of gun control in place. Every single time we see these shootings happen, there's so much more to the story. We want to know what kind of drug abuse is going on with that person. What kind of psychotropic medications are they on, and are those making an effect? As well as what is their home life like, and what are their parents doing? The other questions are, where do they get these guns, and why weren't the checks and balances that are already legal, why didn't they stop it? But the real reality is schools are gun-free zones, and many places are gun-free zones, and that leaves every single person unsafe because you can't defend yourself.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much for being back on my show and on NTD. Thanks for being here, fellow Floridian now.
Glad to be back.
It's always so great to have you and get your thoughts. Congressman, since you've become a congressman, what has been the most challenging work to date, and what's been the most rewarding to you?
The most rewarding is helping the people back home, constituent service. So many times it's just simple stuff that the federal agencies don't get done for them. And so to be able to help assist that, to get them what they need, it's been the best part of the job. Second best part of the job is reading classified intel. I gotta say that part's fun.
That's cool.
The stuff that's been so frustrating is that congressional Democrats refuse to lift a finger to help the American people. They unleashed inflation. They voted for it. They don't want to secure the border. They ignore it.
Yep.
And so you have these fentanyls running through our streets.
Yep.
All they want to talk about is the opioid epidemic from 10 years ago. All these things that they just choose to ignore because unfortunately it's all on their watch and the damage has been caused by them. Been the most frustrating part, but I think that's going to change this November.
Well, when it comes to energy independence, you've talked a lot about it. I've watched you talk about it on the Hill. Do Democrats understand that the policy is detrimental, or are they just steadfast in supporting the lunacy of it?
I think they're steadfast in supporting it. I think they're caught in the dogma of it in their party, and they don't have a viable solution. Even they know this, but they're trapped. Because if they reverse course, their concern is that their base is going to abandon them, or the lunatic fringe Green New Deal base will abandon them. But the reality is that the Green New Deal will not work. It does not work. It will not work. Even Germany now is saying, you know what? Maybe we should keep our last nuclear plant on. They're turning their coal power plants back on. Because if everything hits the fan, you still need energy. And so I think that the reality is that in America, we have to be committed to a consistent energy matrix that increases nuclear, increases natural gas. And then if you want to have solar and wind on the side, okay, but let's not send that money to China for China to give it to us. Let's figure it out ourselves here at home.
Let's stay on that subject with China. We know that Biden has been selling some of our strategic reserves to China, to a company that's tied in with his son, Sinopec. Why did 219 Democrats also sign on to that?
Because this is very concerning. You cannot have a situation where oil prices are high, gas prices are through the roof, but we're sending oil from the strategic reserve, the thing for us,
right,
to China. That is a no-no. That is a no-go. So you even have some Democrats who see that is just a bridge too far. It's not even a bridge too far. It's insane why we would do that. They even had to acknowledge it. And to be honest, you got some who are in some of these seats where they need to start doing something to show the people back home that they're fighting for them. I think it's too little too late, but they got to do something.
How confident are you in election integrity looking into midterms in 2024?
I'm actually pretty confident. I think one of the things, what happened in 2020 was terrible for our country. But you can move a presidential election with 15 key counties across a couple of states.
Yeah.
The difference with congressional elections, it's all over the country. Everything is in play. It's very hard to do that on a countrywide scale. And people would think that it's actually the opposite. Not true. Like I said, 15 counties basically decide presidential elections. Mm-hmm. So if you're juicing the vote in Wayne County, Michigan, in Dane County, Wisconsin, in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, in Philadelphia County in Pennsylvania, in DeKalb County in Georgia. If you do it in key areas, you can affect presidential elections. For 2022, I think the country is so broad and the Democrats have been so bad.
Yeah.
All their little tricks ain't even going to work because Americans are fed up across the board.
You expect a full flip for House and Senate?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Well, let's talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson becoming the first black female to become a Supreme Court justice. Is this a proud moment for America, or was she the wrong choice?
I think it's a proud moment for America. But I also think that she's the wrong choice because she is a liberal.
Yeah.
You can believe both at the same time.
They're not mutually exclusive.
They're not mutually exclusive. They believe both at the same time. She is a liberal. She will go down with liberal orthodoxy on the court. She would not define a woman. I mean, people say like, oh, that's a cheap shot. No, it's not, because words matter. Especially for Supreme Court justices. What you say and what you don't say, what you define and what you don't define truly matters. Last part I'll say on this. The Republican Party actually had the first woman slated to go on the court.
Yep.
Her name was Jasmine Rogers Shaw. She was filibustered by none other than Joe Biden.
How ironic.
So I want the Democrats to remember that the guy they think is their their equity savior actually blocked the first black woman who was slated to go on the Supreme Court.